Will you dare to love? Millennials and Gen Z, I want you to order my new book, Millennial and Gen Z Guide to Marriage, Love in the Age of Lies, Deception, and Mistrust by Natural Ferreira, because this is our time. Available today on Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. So, guys, let's talk about AI for a moment here. Just as a little introduction, I've got a little article here that I want to take you through. Actually, I've got a couple of articles that I pulled up. They're actually both a little bit dated, and I'm going to explain to you why. I generally do like to share sort of more up-to-date sources, but in this instance, I kind of wanted to find some sources that were a little bit dated for the purposes of this, because I've been saying this in several videos. You've heard me say it. I just moved my charger. You've heard me say it before. I just think that social media, and I'm gonna use social media as a variable to compare AI to a lot, and you'll probably hear me make that comparison a lot in these videos where we explore AI, because I feel like it's the closest thing that we could compare to that, to this new technology. Like, what are the major innovations, within society that have come forth in concerning, the newer technologies that we have had in the past, say, 100 years. It's been the car, the automobile. Actually, I guess it's a little bit, let's say the past 150 years. It's been the automobile. It's been the radio. It's been the television. First it was black and white television, and it had a screen that was about this big, and then it was bigger televisions with bigger screens. And then it was a color television, and then it was digital television, and then it was CD players and MP3 players, and then slowly we've just worked our way up to these pieces of technology. Social media, I find it to be very, very toxic today. I feel like the sweet spot for social media was between 2004. I think 2004 is when, which one of the social platforms came out in 2004? Was it YouTube? I think it was YouTube. It was either MySpace or YouTube. But that, to me, that was the golden era. That was the era of social media where this was really about connecting with other people. This was about creating. This was about art. This was about expressing yourself. There were still trolls. Now, don't psych yourself into thinking that there were never trolls, because there are always trolls. There was probably still hate speech. Well, I know there was still hate speech. But it wasn't to the point of what social media is today, which is this driving factor in everyone's lives, and it's not because we've chosen it. It's because a certain set of millionaires and billionaires have seen social media as an easy way that I can target people who I want to sell things to, who I want to support certain lobbying practices that I have. There's a lot of the food suppliers, the fast food chains on social media, people like Elon Musk, who are, the tech CEOs, tech decision makers on social media. There's a lot of the cars that we buy, the clothes that we buy, even the grocery stores that we shop at, and social media may seem like this, wonderland that's not that big of a deal. It's just on your phone. It's just air, it's just pixels. But, their servers are housed somewhere. And those servers, they have to have batteries. They have to have, precious metals and minerals to create those batteries, to create the servers, to create all of the wiring, and then there's the factories that create the hardware for these servers, where they house these servers. There is the pollution that's put out in the air as a result of this, combined with already all the pollution that's being put into the air because of cars. Social media is not air, it's not pixels. It's actually contributing to the environmental problems that we're having right now. The ice caps are melting. Some places just this past summer had the record hottest hottest weather that they've ever had. Like polar bears are dying off because they don't have stuff to eat because the ice caps are melting. They're becoming these emaciated things that don't even look like polar bears. We can feel it, in some of our cities, we can feel the air changing. We actually really are animals. And we can detect when our environment is in danger. And if some people would put aside their pride, they would realize it. In Texas, which is one of the most conservative places, I think 3 people died of heat stroke during this hot summer. It's not normal. So how does the environmental implications, and then that's not even a scratch on the surface of the social implications, like look at how much hate you see online. Look at how many children, and I'm talking about teenagers, have committed suicide because of what they've seen online, because of what people have said to them online. Even adults, it's not just teenagers. I also see a lot of news coverage online of them talking about how social media can be hurtful to teenagers, but what about the adults as well? People calling people racial slurs, homophobia, transphobia, the misogyny, the discrimination against disabled people. So you've got this environmental effect, social media and all of this consumption. You just think about the consumption. If you take anything away from that, total word salad that I just put out there, consumption. Although social media, we may feel as air, we may feel as pixels, we are consuming it. We're consuming it as a product, and we're consuming products from it, okay? And that consumption is creating a bottleneck in the earth, okay? It's something that no generation previous to us has ever tapped into. So this endless consumption that's both created, used as a vehicle to transport, and aggravated by social media. And really wrap your head around those 3 things, because social media sort of perpetuates it, it delivers it to you, it carries it to you, and it markets it to you to keep buying more. This consumption is going to be the detriment, the death of us. People like Elon Musk may think, oh, well, we could just go to Mars. No, it doesn't really work like that. And would we be the generation that just sort of didn't have enough self-control to not let it get to that point? So that's that one thing, is the environmental effect, this consumption, this overconsumption. The other thing is the social effect, the fact that it's driving us apart. Now, in many ways, social media does bring us together. It does. We can communicate with our families. We can communicate with friends that we haven't talked to since high school. I got in touch through social media with a friend I haven't talked to in a decade, and it is peachy keen, amazing. But there's also that other ugly side of the social impacts of social media. It makes us more isolated. We're inside more. Studies have even shown those 6-second bumper videos that you're always flipping through, those reels, those TikToks. Yeah, they're causing your brain to regress. They're causing you to lose brain cells. The implications of these politicians who drive culture wars and drive distraction and misinformation between us to create these stochastic terrorism moments are driving people apart. It's the exact same thing that's mentioned in the Bible that's not right. That it's that coveting the possessions of your neighbor. It is going to warring with your neighbors, people of different races, people of different socioeconomic classes, people of different backgrounds, educational backgrounds, people of different cultural backgrounds. It's driving people apart. So you've got this climactic component of it. You've got this environmental component of it, and then you've got this social component of it. AI is going to be like social media times 10. And what's worse is that social media is going to sort of propel AI forward. So AI is going to be this thing that has the power to divide, that has the power to misinformate. Well, that's one of Donald Trump's vocabularisms. It's going to have the power to misinform. It's going to have the power to divide, misinform. It's going to have the power to separate people. It's going to have the power to isolate people. But I feel like 15 times at the implications. What we also have to think about is minorities, poor people, the people who are already at risk in society, to not have the jobs they deserve, not have the education they deserve, not have the health care that they deserve, not have the neighborhoods that they deserve, the roads that they deserve, the technology that they deserve. Rural people, it's not just black people, Latino people, poor people, whatever, however you're thinking in your mind of those people. It's also going to be rural people. It's also going to be women. AI is going to be very, 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 there's going to be implications, okay? So people who are marginalized are going to be really, really at risk for what AI is going to do. It's going to take a lot of jobs. It's going to take a lot of hope away from people. It's going to have a lot of people just behind. A lot of people won't just honestly know how to use these tools. There's going to be a lot of people who are skilled laborers, who are tradespeople, who are military people, who are veterans, who just simply aren't interested or do not know how to work AI. And so that's also going to cause them to lag behind. It's going to create it's going to create a standard of living that not everybody will be able to keep up with. So I have this article here from AI News, and this is from 2018, but I kind of really wanted to do that because I feel like this was the point where AI was still quite, as we would say in French, flou, which means blurry, and so I feel like actually that's the time probably when people really understood the resonance of this. And they understood the danger of it. Because don't get it wrong, this is dangerous. And it's not for the everyday person. Yes, it might make our lives a bit easier. But just think about this. We used to listen to music on nothing but records. And then CDs came along. Then MP3s came along. Okay, great. It made our lives easier. But do you think that was created to really make our lives easier? Yes, on the one hand it was. But also it just was to make some people who were usually white men tons of money. Okay? AI, social media, is the exact same thing. Like I said in another video recently, we've seen that movie I, Robot, right? We've seen Black Mirror. Elon Musk is creating neural chips. As a matter of fact, I want to share this story with you. I almost forgot, and I have no idea how I did. They're trying to use AI. They're using AI. Let me not say they're trying to use. They're using AI to create a woolly mammoth. Yep, that's right. I mean, for those of you out there who already knew this, it's probably not that big of a deal. But they actually are using AI to create a woolly mammoth. And they say it's because the woolly mammoths will help offset some of the implications, some of the consequences of greenhouse gases. Is this just about humans? The other thing we could do is stop consuming so much. Real simple. We could stop taking planes so much. We could stop driving our gas-guzzling SUVs so much. We could stop eating food that came from halfway around the world. But in order to do that, we would have to hold governments accountable to say, bring production back home. Bring food back home. That's just a talking point of the Republicans, but they don't really care about that. They just care about money. And if they actually really cared about that, they would go ahead and admit that they know that if we did diminish a bit of this globalization that we've got going on, okay, the millionaires that we have would probably drop down from, let's say, their 34 million status to something like 12 million. I don't know. And the people who have like a billion, maybe they come down to 500 million. I don't know, 300 million, something like that. Who knows? Either way, that net worth, the amount of money that they live on, would go down. But they're basically bringing back the woolly mammoth. I mean, and I'm trying to be like, I hope I'm being clear with you. Some of you guys out there may think that I'm being like figurative or something, or that they're just going to create like a rendering of a woolly mammoth. No, they're actually going to mutate an elephant to make it grow hair and to grow the horns the way they used to have and have the big build so that it becomes a woolly mammoth. If that doesn't sound like playing God to you, I really don't know what is. It is it is irresponsibility at the highest level. Now, I'm someone who has fertility issues. I would love to have children. So, of course, something like IVF or surrogacy would definitely be a reality for me and my partner in the future. But to me, and you guys let me know in the comments if I'm being naive here, but to me, that's something different. We're not creating a new species, because this species that they're creating would not be a woolly mammoth of the past. It would be something completely new, and it would be a first, and we wouldn't know what the heck would happen. You know, it's just like, we're making so many excuses to just change our lifestyles, to go on back the way that we were. Like I said earlier in the video, I grew up in Alabama. My parents, my grandparents actually got food from farms. You know, my grandparents didn't have a farm, but we got our potatoes, our onions, our eggs from a farm. We could actually go back to that. It wouldn't be that hard. Yes, maybe we would still have to produce tractors, but at least we wouldn't be living the way that we are right now, fearing that the world's just going to combust on fire. And this is the fear I have that AI is going to bring. I feel like AI is going to bring some terrible, terrible things. But listen to this. Let's talk about the rich and the poor. So this was from AI News, just to come back to this. AI will increase the wealth inequality between the rich and the poor. Ryan Dawes is a senior editor at TechForge Media with a seasoned background spanning over a decade in tech journalism. His expertise lies in identifying the latest technological trends, dissecting complex topics, and weaving compelling narratives around the most cutting-edge developments. So the article says, artificial intelligence advancements will increase the disparity of wealth between the rich and poor, according to a new report. Remember, this is from 2018, but still very relevant in my eyes. The report, titled Artificial Intelligence and Its Implications for Income Distribution and Unemployment, was presented last month through the National Bureau of Economic Research. Economists Anton Korenick and Joseph E. Stiglitz believe economic inequality is one of the main challenges posed by the proliferation of artificial intelligence and other forms of worker replacing technological progress. Me as an art director, me as a creator in advertising, I'm absolutely pissed. You know that I'm pissed. I'm pissed that some technology is going to be able to write, you know, it already does, it already can write, create images, create a whole campaign for you, create a whole movie for you. The only solace that I take is that the creativity within numbers, zeros and ones, machines and pixels is never ever going to be able to have the humanity that a person can have writing you copy for an ad, or writing you a script for a movie, or designing you a poster for a music festival, or designing you a bus wrap for whatever your company is. No AI is ever going to really be able to have what we have inside of us, a human spirit, a human soul. So that's the only solace that I take, but I'm not leaning on it too much because I'm starting to think some of these CEOs are robots themselves. And I'm starting to think some consumers are as well, because consumers seem to not really care that they're just going to be fed something that's right out of a George Orwell book. Um, it says, the disparity of wealth between the rich and poor is a global issue. A report from Credit Suisse found the richest 1% own half of the world's wealth. So we know that. In the US, for example, the expected lifespans of the poor and the wealthy have diverged significantly in recent decades, in part because of unequal access to health care and ever more costly new technologies that are only available to those who can pay, they state. And we know that the health care, those disparities within healthcare, within being able to take care of yourself the way that you need to, it hits who the most? It hits minorities. It hits black and brown people. It hits rural people. It hits women. It hits people who are immigrants. We know this. And those people are often affected more by poverty in general. It's not to say that all immigrants are poor, all black people are poor, all brown people are poor, all women are poor. No, it's just if you come from those groups, you're more likely to be hit by poverty. And if you come from those groups, AI is going to be likely to hit those groups who are more likely to be impoverished even more. So now you're going to be even more likely to be in poverty. But you can do something about it. You can advocate with your senators, with your legislators, to do something about AI, to regulate AI the way that social media should have been, the way that television is. And it's not too late to advocate to have social media regulated as well. So it says there are clear parallels to the situation today, and that a significant fraction of the workforce may not have the skills required to succeed in the age of AI. So we just spoke about that. There may be people who truly are either not interested, and that's okay. If you are a carpenter and you want to be a carpenter, it's okay to be a carpenter. If you are a designer and you just want to design, it's okay to be a designer. You should not have to have fault because a computer can go and do that for you. The researchers concur with a report we posted last September claiming AI will create more jobs overall, but a lack of relevant skills will mean a vast majority of workforce are unprepared to fill them. And black people, you know that you are in that. So this is my recommendation to black people and brown people. Black people, immigrants, across the board. I would recommend that you guys start studying AI. There are university programs that offer it. Study it. You probably will still run into those same glass ceilings. You're going to still run into those microaggressions at work, but you have to be in the game, and your children have to be in the game. Encourage your children, your grandchildren, to get into AI, because it is about to change the landscape. It's coming whether we like it or not, and I hate that, but you can tell because the powers that be pull these strings. Now let me just go ahead and say, again, AI, these technologies, the factories that create these technologies are going to continue to pump gunk into the air. Yes, AI and social media feel like air and pixels, like it's nothing. It's just this light on my phone screen. But no, those batteries that are in these phones, that are in these computers, that are in these gigantic screens, that are in these tablets, that are in the robots, that are in the manufacturing warehouses, yes, it takes a lot to create those batteries. And they are polluting the earth, along with our gas guzzling cars. So we get into AI, okay? Like black people, brown people, we're going to do what people, they will always do what they've always done. They will try their very, very best to stay ahead of the curve, and some people will get left behind, sadly, but people are going to try to compete. But I guarantee you, let's check back in about 50 years or 100 years. I hope that I'll still be here, and say maybe in between that, let's just say in like 60 years. I can't say 70 years. I don't know. I mean, I'm 32. My granddad is 93, so hopefully. But, let's just check back in maybe 50 years, and I guarantee you, people will have started to try to shuttle back to the old days, shuttle back to local farms, community gardens. People will have tried to shuttle back to carpooling. People will have tried to shuttle back to less globalization, less flying across seas, because we will be breathing in smogged air, you know. So AI is around for now, but I can't tell you that people won't start to rebel against this, because this is probably going to get very, very nasty. But black people, people of color, get into AI. Yeah, the article basically goes on and talks about how AI basically will just be at the disposal, and in some of the similar ways that even just having a car opens up way more possibilities. You know, it's a luxury for some that some don't have the luxury to enjoy. Um, so the article just ends. I thought that this was noteworthy. It ends by saying, if intelligence becomes a matter of ability to pay, it is conceivable that the wealthiest enhanced humans, again, Elon Musk is trying to put neural chips into your brain to control your phone. We didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for this. So, if intelligence becomes a matter of ability to pay, it is conceivable that the wealthiest enhanced humans will become orders of magnitude more productive, more intelligent than the unenhanced, until they get cancer because of this crap. Neural chips in your brain, like, that's not going to cause some complications with your body. But, you know, it's okay. People get what they, people get what they pay for, in more ways than one. The unenhanced leaving the majority of the population further and further behind, they write. So I feel like poor people, in the short term, it might not look so good. But in the long term, you'll still have your health, while some people are probably dealing with terrible implications of having chips put in their brain. But we'll see. And there you have it right there. We're going to need the government to really, really take a look at this and make sure that companies are not abusing their power. And that really comes back to us, if you're living in the U.S. particularly. But if you live in the EU, you know, same thing for you. If you live in Canada, same thing for you. If you live in Mexico, same thing for you. Australia, same thing for you. Even those in Africa, even those in parts of Asia, okay, same thing. You're going to have to advocate to your governments, to your local lawmakers, to put some protections in place for poor people and vulnerable people. Now listen to this. This is from the ACLU. This is from 3 years after that article released. And it says how artificial intelligence can deepen racial and economic inequalities. Love the ACLU. So it says how, okay, so this is from Olga Axelrod. It says proponents of expanding the use of artificial intelligence AI often point to its potential to stimulate economic growth, increase productivity at lower costs. I'm so tired of this word productivity. A higher GDP per capita and job creation have all been touted as possible benefits. The promise of an economic boost via machine learning is understandably seductive, and private and government actors are now regularly using AI in key areas of economic opportunity, including education, housing, employment, and credit. Unemployment's like a Freudian slip. Like, I seriously think so many people are going to be displaced because of this type of technology. To name just a few. The promise of an economic boost via machine learning is understandably seductive, and private and government sectors are now regularly using AI in key areas of economic opportunity, including education, housing, employment, and credit, to name just a few. I feel like this is really going to put a lot of people out of work. But as AI adoption is cast as a smart economic investment in the future, it's important to pause and ask, whose futures and whose wallets are we talking about? And we know generally, because of white supremacy, because of colonialism, because of the implications of slavery, One group has been said to be superior than another, and we're seeing now from this overturning of Roe versus Wade. I'm sorry, not Roe versus Wade, overturning of affirmative action. We can see that, you know, the legacy, the legacy acceptances into universities. If we get rid of those, that some people are going to be crying. The same people that said that you needed to get rid of affirmative action because it was letting in DEI, or what they're calling didn't earn it people, aka people that look like me. Despite people that look like me having had the educational background, the training, the certifications, all the things, all the same qualifications that person whose granddad, dad, brother, whatever, might have gone to that university, right? But that person whose family, all their family members went to that university, and, they come from a very rich family versus, so say for instance me, who comes from a fairly middle class family, they might look at me and say I don't have the experience, when what they're really saying is that I don't come from a family that's had, all of these people go here for all this time, when maybe they didn't necessarily always deserve it. It's just that they were part of a race, a class, a social group, an echelon, whatever you want to call it, that gave them an advantage. So skipping down, listen to this. It says the bottom line is that the administration and federal agencies must prioritize and address all the ways that AI and technology can exacerbate racial and other inequities, and ensure that its policies and enforcement activities lead to more equitable outcomes. Now, equitable is, for those of you in the Black community, the African American community, y'all probably have heard this word thrown around a while. Equitable is bigger than just money, getting money. It really for us means, how do we attain generational wealth? The generational wealth that's not there the way that it is for some others because of slavery, because of Jim Crow. In the past years, we have continued to make big strides forward as far as equity. But, you look at the top CEOs of company, I think it's like 1% of them is women. So can you imagine what it is for Black women, for example? You look at how much ad money is put into media companies. I know black owned major media companies don't get half, a quarter, a fraction of that money that the big players like CNN, like, ABC and all of those companies get. How much of representation do you see in the workforce, in government, on television? When you look on television, like what stereotypes, what racial stereotypes are you seeing? Are you seeing that we are the ones who are, governmental decision makers? Are we, leadership? Are we within higher upper management, or are we, selling dope on the streets? I mean, more often than not, it's probably the latter than the former. But it goes on to say, and with AI, would that exacerbate that stereotype, right? But we'll come back to that. Ultimately, I think the ACLU is great, but I will just sum it up like this. Just before we wrap it up, I will sum it up like this. I think what I said earlier at the top of the hour is what it is. We need to start as, Blacks, Asians, Latinos, Middle Eastern, women, LGBTQ, disabled. We need to go to school for AI. Our children need to go to school and study AI. Their children need to study AI, because the boom will probably still be around at that point. And those people from these minority groups are the best to represent for their groups. So for as an example, one of the biggest concerns is that ChatGPT or any other AI that produces some sort of like written form of content, it generates some sort of written form of content. Let's say that there are different voices that are spoken this, and then one is supposed to represent Jamal. But the way that Jamal is speaking he's speaking in a way that's racially offensive, even though he's supposed to be a black person, but maybe because the people who coded that AI are not black, maybe they won't really read into these nuances. Or maybe if it's someone who is disabled, maybe in some AI, a depiction through an image or some written form of content would be really offensive to a disabled person. But let's say if there were more disabled people writing code for AI, they would be able to have that particular set of insight. So I think part of the answer is representation. AI is going to have representation of marginalized groups within there. So it goes on to say, decades of discrimination have left people of color, and black people in particular, women and other marginalized groups at an economic disadvantage in the U.S. The Biden administration must work to reverse the trends that continue to this day, which must necessarily include an emphasis on how modern digital technologies perpetuate inequity. The economic and racial divide in our country will only deepen if the administration fails to do so. Now, I have been thinking through ways to really hold the administration accountable, because we know players like the dude who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, players like Elon Musk, players like Donald Trump, like, they are not going to hold corporations accountable, hold themselves accountable to make sure that black, brown, LGBTQ, women, disabled people, and all of them, not necessarily in that order, but all of them get the equity that these marginalized groups deserve. They just aren't, so it has to be the administration that does it. And I have been thinking through ways of how do we do that, and not just in the US, but in the Western world, period, in the world, period. I mean, AI is going to be hitting all over the world. And it's got to come from everyday people. That's the only thing that I can keep coming back to. If you live in a constitutional democracy, like a constitutional republic, like, the US, the UK, whatever, there are ways that you can advocate directly to your members of Congress, your members of Senate, whatever, your legislators, your lawmakers, I guess, in other places they may be called, your ministers, if it's in the UK. In France, where I live, you can advocate to the General Assembly. You can write into the office. There's usually some sort of online system that you can go through to submit requests, submit complaints. You can go back to the 1960s. I know, like, in the 60s, the time of my grandma and aunts and stuff like that, they were actually forming little groups within their neighborhoods, to write to their senators and their legislators together. And I think we're going to have to go back to that. It's like that movement that came out of the 1960s with this little guy, you might know his name, Martin Luther King Jr., that right there was born of men and women in towns all across America gathering around the kitchen table and being like, how can we get some stuff done? Like, which congressperson can we write to get some stuff done? And I think that's what's going to happen with, that's going to be what has to happen with AI in order for it to not leave behind marginalized groups like poor people, like rural people, like black people, like brown people, like LGBTQ people, like women, like disabled people, like veterans. But I want to know what you guys think. Again, I'm really, really, really concerned, but I do know that the people have so much power, so we can continue to advocate about this, and the conversation is not done. I mean, AI is coming. It's coming like a freight train, and we can't stop it, so we're definitely going to be talking about this more. This was a big subject and a lot to take on. I had no idea, even starting this video out, that this would be so long. So let me know what you think in the comments. And again, if you're new here, I would love to invite you to support this channel, support Black-owned media, support independent media. What we do here is so, so, so important. It brings these conversations to the everyday person, everyday man, everyday woman. And I'm so happy that I have you guys' support. It really, really, really matters to me. I have noticed that the people who subscribe to this channel, for the most part, really stay. Even when I am sometimes busy, even sometimes when I don't get to the comments as fast, you guys never, ever give up on me. And so it means that We really are building a little community here. So if you would like to support this community, of course it's free to just like and subscribe, hit the bell, that way you know whenever I post a video. But if you would like to donate to this channel, that would also be very helpful. It helps us run on our softwares and our programs and things like that. So you can do that through a super chat, super thanks. Below is just like a heart with a $sign in it. You can also give me a donation through paypal.me/realnajwa, and you can also join on premium membership. So with that being said, I will see you guys next time. Have a great one. Bye.